Hey everybody, and welcome to the show. Around the Nation right here, TYT Nation, Jeff Waldorf here with you. Great show for you guys today on this Tuesday, which is kind of like a Monday. But of course, we had the holiday yesterday, so I kind of want to talk a little bit about that. But first, you guys might have noticed on Sunday, we had a little bit of a live stream, which was fun. I'm doing this in partnership with Get Vocal, which is a new social media service that basically aims to do more constructive conversation as opposed to yelling at each other, which I think is good. Conversation, not just yelling at each other. So that's fun. Hopefully you guys that were able to see that. We're going to be doing a web series on the upcoming midterms. So tune in for that. That's Sundays, 5 p.m. Eastern. We're going to have some guests. I'm going to be going to be discussing with a conservative. Ooh, drama. So we'll have a conservative on. We'll be discussing things, not next week, but I believe the following week we've got that book. So that's going to be fun. That is Sunday nights, Get Vocal. Should be fun. Okay, anyway, we've got more stuff I want to talk about. Labor Day. So yesterday was Labor Day. So if you haven't already, thank you, Union. I did get a few tweets yesterday talking about, yeah, but what about May Day? And that's actually really, really important. So you're right for pointing that out. Nonetheless, hopefully everybody did have a safe and happy Labor Day and did thank a union. I'm a union guy, so been a union guy for a long time. So again, thank you, unions, for the weekend and for time off. Okay, anyway, moving on. A couple of things before we start the show. There are the Kavanaugh hearings that are happening right now today. We'll have some video and hopefully talk about that tomorrow because that's really important. Kavanaugh, of course, disastrous Supreme Court pick by Donald Trump. There's a lot of reasons why people are not in favor of him. And I'm hoping the Democrats don't mess it up by allowing him to skate through. So, look, man, again, he's a disastrous pick. He will be disastrous for the country, disastrous for women, working rights, or workers' rights, LGBT rights, all these different rights that people actually enjoy. Judge Kavanaugh is not in favor of, necessarily. Or I think the most important part that he would actually vote more in favor of corporations and corporate rights instead of actual human beings' rights. And that is the big problem here that we have with Judge Kavanaugh. So I'll talk about that. Also, in the news, John Kyle is going to be replacing John McCain, according to Cindy McCain. John Kyle, of course, conservative. I will look into more of his record, but I can assume it's not going to be very good. So that's stuff that we're not going to get to in depth today, but may do in future shows. Today, we do have a fun show. We have conservatives lighting their shoes on fire. Awesome. And they're owning the libs by doing so. Well, we'll see. We also have, of course, Trump versus Sessions. A couple of stories on that. Early morning, maybe some early morning tweets about Jeff Sessions. And some quotes in the new Bob Woodward book that is coming out. That's amazing. We have more Bob Woodward as well. So that's interesting. And then, of course, we're going to talk about worker protections. Very, very important since it's the day after Labor Day. Might want to talk about that. So how has Trump been doing when it comes to workplace safety? Fascinating. Okay, anyway. Now, that's what we've got on the show today. Then what we're going to do before we get into the actual shows, I just want to remind you guys, please give us a like and share. Super chats, they help the show. So if you want to support us, use the super chat function. Another way to support us, of course, is patreon.com/TYTNation. It's more important than ever to support independent progressive media because, look, the recent changes to YouTube show that the ad-supported model which I'm currently surviving on, is not going to be around for, I think, much longer. That's going to take down shows like ours. So it's more important than ever to sign up to become a patron, patreon.com/TYTNation. I know, but I would rather be supported by you guys than supported by ads anyway. So if you can do that, then God bless, right? And thank you. I appreciate it. Okay. That said, I think we will move on and start the first story. I absolutely love that. Okay. Fun. On Monday, Nike unveiled a new ad that is enraging some conservatives. Now, that, of course, features Colin Kaepernick. Already interesting. And uses the, quote, "believe in something, even if it means sacrificing everything." To which, of course, heads exploded. Now, look, Colin Kaepernick is, to some people, a controversial figure. Not controversial at all. I think he's absolutely right. But because of the way that he decided to protest racial inequality, got him blackballed within the NFL, despite him having an actually decent record as a player. Again, he was, and I'm not a football guy, admittedly, but wasn't he part of the team that won the NFC Championship? And according to his stats, he has thrown for 12,270 yards to go along with 72 touchdown passes with only 30 interceptions. He's also rushed for 2,300 yards and 13 touchdowns. So, again, I'm not a huge football guy, but that doesn't sound too terrible. But regardless, you have conservatives and NFL owners, let's be honest, outraged. Now, as far as some NFL fans go, they are calling to boycott Nike over this. Okay, hey, look, you want to boycott Nike, that's fine. Okay, you're upset with them using an ad with Colin Kaepernick, an ad deal. Fine, whatever, right? But no, they're going to take it a step further. This is where it gets absurd. Again, boycotts are okay. You want to boycott? I think Nike's going to survive without your money. They're a, $30 billion industry? Okay, whatever. But with conservatives, as I said, that's not going to be enough. They then have to film themselves destroying things that they have already paid for. Okay. Let me give you an example here. Now, this is the video here I'm going to show you is from Sean Clancy, who, along with the video, has a corresponding tweet saying, "First, the NFL forces me to choose between my favorite sport and my country. I chose country. Then Nike forces me to choose between my favorite shoes and my country. Since when did the American flag and the national anthem become offensive?" I will get to his question after this hilarious video of him burning his own shoes. Watch.
You know how many other sneakers there are to buy, to choose from? You're going to go ahead and say, hey, buy them our shoes. We stand with people who kneel for the national anthem. Well, sorry, Nike. I've been buying you for the past 20 plus years. Not anymore. Not only am I burning my favorite pair of Nikes, you are burning your sales. Have a good day.
Dude, you just burned your shoes. And you're like, winner. I'm winning here. You burned your favorite pair of shoes. You just said, man, this is my favorite pair of shoes. But, yeah, man, I gotta burn them. But you're burning your sales. No, you're not. Nike, again, they're over $30 billion company this year, I think, from what they made. It might have been in a quarter. They're an extremely wealthy company. Your boycott is not going to do anything. And you burning your shoes after you paid for them is not going to do anything. Oh my God, these people. Holy crap. But look, let me address what he talks about, right? So, when did the American flag and the national anthem become offensive? Well, but that's not what it's about. That's not what any of this is about. You know what actually is offensive? For one, rampant ignorance, which this is a great example of. But more importantly, racial injustice. Why do you think he was protesting? He was protesting against racial injustice. But unfortunately, there is this narrative driven by Fox News and right-wing media that says, no, if you protest, if you kneel during the anthem, you are disrespecting the flag and you are disrespecting the troop, you are disrespecting the military. That's not true. That's complete and utter BS. In fact, Colin Kaepernick, he had asked veterans before he protested if this was the right thing to do. Hey, man, is this disrespectful to you? Do you feel disrespected when I kneel quietly during the national anthem? And they said, no, absolutely not. We fought for your right to protest, to, redress your government with grievances. And so, hey, here's our blessing. Have fun. Now, look, and the other funny thing about this story is Colin Kaepernick was barely getting any attention for this protest until the conservative Snowflake Patrol came around and found this to be absolutely outrageous and came up with this fake narrative. But let me ask you something. Was it outrageous when Tim Tebow kneeled in protest of abortion? Just go back to 2012. Tim Tebow was kneeling during the anthem to protest against abortion. Were you outraged then? Nobody was outraged. It was barely a story. But a black man kneels to protest police brutality and racial injustice, and everybody goes insane. Well, there's a difference here. Tebow was kneeling for good old conservative Christian values. Well, that's perfectly acceptable. But when you kneel for, to get awareness of and to try to stop police violence against black people, well, that is disrespectful. That is outrageous. You're disrespecting the flag. How dare you bring attention to an issue that we don't actually care about? And that, of course, that issue is Black lives. Not only is this a gigantic self-own, but it also shows the privilege of the people who are protesting, or who are burning their own stuff. Nikes, they're not cheap. There's a reason I didn't get Nikes when I was a kid. I did not grow up with money, okay? So, but the people that have these articles of clothing that they're cutting up, and again, they're either burning them or they're cutting the Nike swooshes off them, which is ridiculous, right? To do this for your stupid protest shows that in a lot of cases, the people involved haven't been asked to sacrifice anything. And look, if there are veterans that are doing this, this isn't about you. This isn't about disrespecting veterans, the military, or this country. The whole point was to try to make the country better for people who have historically had it pretty bad. And while we're on the subject, if you really feel the need to boycott Nike, again, remember they're a billion-dollar company that outsources much of their labor to low-wage countries. So they've even employed or been charged with employing child labor. So they have multiple issues, multiple problems. You want to boycott them for that? Great, that's a boycott I can get behind. But to do it for this, and to burn things that you've already paid for in what is hilariously a giant self-own, is the height of both privilege and stupidity. Okay. Moving forward. Okay. It continues. The ridiculousness. So President Trump is now criticizing Jeff Sessions for doing his job. This is how ridiculous this whole situation has gotten. Politico is reporting that the president on Monday attacked his Justice Department for indicting 2 Republican congressmen ahead of the fall midterm elections. Really? Well, that would appear to be the Justice Department doing what it's supposed to do. Indicting people who have done, or allegedly have done, criminal actions. But let's get into the details here. 2 long-running, and this is a Donald Trump tweeting about this, 2 long-running Obama-era investigations of 2 very popular Republican congressmen were brought to a well-publicized charge just ahead of the midterms by the Jeff Sessions Justice Department. 2 easy wins in doubt now because there's not enough time. Good job, Jeff. Good job. You're welcome. Now, who's he referring to? This is referring to Chris Collins, who's been accused of insider trading and has a pretty... there's a pretty good case against Chris Collins, who had sat on the board of that company. And then when there were some regulatory decisions that were being made, said, okay, look, we need to sell this stock. We need to dump this stock immediately. And there's a whole giant story about that with a lot of background and a lot of dealings, of course, between him and his son. So they've got a pretty good case against him. The other is Duncan Hunter. Now, Duncan Hunter has been accused of misappropriating campaign spending. So basically what he did is he alleged to have taken donor money and spent it on things like trips to Italy, dental work, groceries, as well as, of course, flying his pet rabbit. I'm not kidding you. Because, you know, you can't have a family vacation if you don't fly out your pet rabbit. All that donor money dime, right? And hilariously throwing his wife under the bus as well. So, in total, he's alleged to have misappropriated $250,000. Now, this guy is a congressman. He's an incumbent. He already gets the congressional salary of about $174,000 a year. That is above his means. Or, I'm sorry, he is spending above his means. Still. So he had to take donor money, allegedly, and spend it on all this stuff. This guy's got a serious problem. Or many serious problems, as one of the things that he had spent on is buying 30 shots at a bachelor party. Okay. So look, these are serious charges, right? This could lead to jail time. And both cases, investigators have a lot of evidence against these. Okay, very, very likely, in my opinion, based on what I've seen in the evidence, that they did it. Now, to Donald Trump, does he care at all that these people allegedly violated the law? No. He does not care. All he cares about is a win. And of course, is using this as a way to go after Sessions because of the Russia investigation. The fact that they might have actually done these crimes doesn't matter to the president. Why? It's because the president also might have done crimes. To Trump, criminality is not a bug, it's a feature. At least when it comes to people of his own team. Now, if somebody if it's a Democrat, allegedly does crimes, well, look, so progressives, we are great at not circling the wagons, but circling the firing squad. So, and rightly so, if the Democrats, if a Democratic politician commits a crime, then other Democratic politicians don't sit there and defend him. And a Democratic president is not going to defend him. No, they're going to be first to throw him under the bus. That is not how it works with Republicans. That is not how it works with Donald Trump. Who's like, oh, criminality on our side, don't care. I like criminals because I am one. But when it comes to the Democrats, lock them up. Lock them up. The hypocrisy, though, is what I'm trying to point out. And look, he's going after his own attorney general. By the way, Jeff Sessions, I despise Jeff Sessions. Nonetheless, Look, the fact that he's being attacked for doing his job, I cannot overstate the hypocrisy about this. In fact, to illustrate what this is actually about, it's not about winning the elections. He tweeted just minutes later, Democrats, none of whom voted for Jeff Sessions, must love him now. Same with Lion James Comey. The Dems all hated him, wanted him out, thought he was disgusting until I fired him. Immediately, he became a wonderful man, a saint-like figure. In fact, really sick. So actually, let me give some credit here. He's actually got a point. To be fair, there are members of the so-called resistance that love James Comey. Why? It's because he said terrible things about Donald Trump. Wow. So suddenly now that you're against Donald Trump in any fashion, or at least if you go and criticize him on Twitter or on MSNBC, well, suddenly you're a saint to the resistance. James Comey was a registered Republican, right? Not a very good person, mind you, at least in my opinion. Now he's a vaunted resistance hero. You know, we've gotten to the point of where people on the so-called left, the resistance Twitter, that's being like, you know what? And I saw this as a tweet, and I can't wrap my head around it. Do you guys miss George W. Bush? Because I do. This is someone who's a member of the resistance. Like, I miss George W. Bush. George W. Bush is a war criminal. You're going to miss George W. Bush? But I know what they'll say. Well, Trump is just so much worse that I miss the last worst thing. Don't forget, George W. Bush helped lead us into a recession with deregulation. Come on, man. This is what it's become. If you're even remotely against Donald Trump, you are they will lionize you and be like, oh, James Comey, resistance hero, James Comey 2020. Oh, dear God. This is what's happening. So, nonetheless, right? Oh, you want to have James Clapper, right? James Clapper also criticizing Trump. James Clapper did terrible things. James Clapper lied to the American public under oath about the spying program that Edward Snowden had revealed. James Clapper, resistance hero. Edward Snowden, oh, traitor to America. This is what's going on in the United States today. This is a resistance. But look, it's for Trump. Broken clocks right twice a day. And that's what this is, right? But so I'm going to give him that, right? Because that's an incredibly fair point. But here he is, by the way, tying Jeff Sessions. Jeff Sessions, who was an incredibly right-wing former congressman, somebody that I agree with on nothing, 0%. This is the first guy to support Donald Trump in 2016. And here's Donald Trump saying, this guy's like a Democrat. In fact, they called it the Democratic, or Democrat, because they want to conflate it with rat. They want you to think Democrat equals rat. Not very clever at all. They're tying Jeff Sessions to Democrats. Oh, my God. You know, we don't love Jeff Sessions. We don't like Jeff Sessions. We despise Jeff Sessions. But unlike Donald Trump, we actually do care about the law and if it gets enforced. Look, and if we have congressmen who did financial crimes, again, insider trading for Chris Collins, you can't do that. That's the same thing Martha Stewart went to prison for. And spending campaign funds on personal expenses, that is a campaign finance violation. You can't do that. You have to have a Justice Department that's willing to go and prosecute those crimes. Whether you agree with the politics of the person that's heading that, I at least can give them credit for actually going after these crimes. Because we care about the law, and we're actually consistent when it comes to the law. And if there's a law we don't like, we rally to change that. But that does not apply in Trump world. In Trump world, He has shown over and over again that he does not care about the law. The law doesn't apply. He doesn't care about the law. He doesn't care about the Constitution. He doesn't care about law enforcement. He attacks law enforcement all the time. All Trump cares about is himself and his businesses and his money. The sooner you understand that, his motivations, the sooner the things that he does and says actually make sense. Okay. All right. So here's what we're going to do. We're going to take a quick break. We'll come back. We got another Jeff Sessions story on Bob Woodward. So please share the stream if you haven't already. If you have a super chat, that helps the show, of course. So please send in those super chats with suggestions, etc. Story suggestions or comments or things that you want me to read on air. Please do so. That goes to help the show. All right. We'll be back after this break. Stay right here around the nation. Hey everybody, welcome back to the show, Around the Nation right here. Jeff Waldorf. So I know some of you are asking about Brett Kavanaugh stuff. The reason that we're not doing that today is not because it's not important. It's because I got to have time to get the video around so we can show some of the back and forth, what the Democrats are doing. And I need some extra time to be able to give that story justice because it is such an important story. So that's why I am not covering it at the moment, because it's still developing. There's still a lot of things going on in the Kavanaugh hearings. So just to let you know, guys, it's not that I'm ignoring the story. It's just I got to have all the stuff available. That includes video. So again, I want to do right. Okay. Anyway, that said, let's go into more fun. So President Trump has lashed out at Jeff Sessions, according to aides quoted in a new book about the Trump White House written by veteran reporter Bob Woodward. So now, how's this any different? Well, it's what he says inside to his aides that's actually important. Now, we've seen him attack Sessions on Twitter very, very publicly. This is what he's saying in private. So now, right now, there have been a few excerpts released by the Washington Post, and they're very, very interesting. And I want to read some of that to you. In one excerpt, Trump lashed out at Sessions, who is repeatedly criticized for recusing himself from the Russia investigation, while speaking with then White House Staff Secretary Rob Porter. That's to give you context. So I'm going to say verbatim what he said. Quote, referring to Sessions, "This guy is mentally retarded. He's this dumb Southerner," Trump reportedly told Porter while using a Southern accent. He couldn't even be a one-person country lawyer down in Alabama. So said all that while mocking a Southern accent. Which before he said, I don't understand what Jeff Sessions is saying when he talks. He sounds like he has marbles in his mouth. I hate his accent. I hate his accent. Hey, MAGA guys, especially you guys in the South. It's one thing when us libtards, right, use the Southern accent to make fun of you. And look, we shouldn't. And I actually feel bad for doing that. Totally wrong. I've done it. Not the right thing to do. But it is one thing when we do it. This is your guy. He's doing it. He's making fun of your accent. This is Donald Trump mocking Southerners and Southern conservatives. Again, Jeff Sessions is one of the most conservative people to serve as Attorney General. He's a Republican through and through, a good old boy Republican. And he used to be incredibly beloved by both the establishment politicians and the base because of that staunch conservatism. Now, of course, since the Republican Party is now the party of Donald Trump has managed to turn public opinion against Jeff Sessions, both among elected conservative officials, conservative senators, people like Lindsey Graham, and now the base as well. So actually, to be honest, it wasn't liberals that did in Sessions. It's actually Republicans that are going to take down Sessions, or might take down Sessions. And again, he does this by publicly attacking him for not being pro-Trump enough, right? This is his own Attorney General. This is the guy he picked to run the Justice Department. Now, why? Why would he do that? Well, let's let Trump explain. The president reportedly sees Sessions as a traitor for not overseeing Special Counsel Robert Mueller's investigation into Russian interference in the 2016 election. So it's nothing else that Sessions has done. Again, he's increased civil asset forfeiture. He has remilitarized the police. All that stuff Donald Trump either doesn't care about or he loves. And conservatives love it. They're like, yes, more militarized police. Let's crack down on those black people. Did I say that out loud? Yes, I did, because we're racist and proud. Not all conservatives, but there's quite a few who are racist and proud. Um, and a lot of them support Donald Trump for being their guy. But that's the thing. Donald Trump doesn't care about policy. What he cares about is, A, am I winning? And B, are you supporting me? Are you sufficiently loyal to Donald Trump? And if you are not with him on the Russia investigation, then, then you're a traitor, according to him. He's a traitor. No, you know what a traitor is? Somebody who betrays a country by obstructing justice, right? In regards to a foreign power attempting to interfere in our elections. That's what somebody who's a traitor does. The same. And that does not fit Jeff Sessions. Okay. I think it's fairly clear. All right, more. So veteran reporter Bob Woodward has a new book coming out. And in it, there's apparently some fascinating, well-sourced stories about the president. Yay. Now, one of them, of course, talks about how scared he is of the Russia investigation and how unprepared he is to face a possible sit-down interview with Robert Mueller. Now, the Washington Post, which obtained a copy of this book, reported on Tuesday that former Trump attorney John Dowd had arranged a mock interview for Donald Trump. So the idea was to get him prepared for a possible sit-down with Robert Mueller. Now, that would make sense, especially considering how the president was at first open to the idea of actually talking to Mueller. Like, hey, yes, no, I think, you know what? I think it'd be a great idea. I think I can make my case to the American people about how innocent I am and how this Russian thing is a witch hunt. Okay, so they set up the mock interview. How did it go? Very, very badly. The Hill notes that as Dowd rattled off a series of questions about the investigation into Russian interference in the 2016 election, Trump reportedly had stumbled over his answers while contradicting himself and at some points outright lying. Oops. Again, this is according to sources inside the White House that actually collaborated with Bob Woodward on this book. This is very, very well sourced. This isn't like random people. These are people in high-level places. He's got no strategy. That's what they're saying. He's got no strategy to counter Mueller. In fact, when you sit him down for an interview, he says crazy things, and he lies, and he stumbles. He's not ready for Mueller. No, he would get rolled by Mueller. And of course, after he started contradicting himself and coming up with things, that's when he started to get angry. In fact, Donald Trump, sparking a 30-minute rant, said, quote, in the mock interview, "This thing's a goddamn hoax. I don't even want to testify." Oh my God. After that, that's when John Dowd changed his mind about an interview. In fact, per the Washington Post, Dowd then explained to Mueller in a meeting he met with Mueller why he was trying to keep the president from testifying. This is an actual quote here. "I'm not going to sit there and let him look like an idiot. And you publish that transcript because everything leaks in Washington, and the guys overseas are going to say, I told you he was an idiot. I told you he was a goddamn dumbbell. What are we dealing with this idiot for?" Mueller responded, "John, I understand." Oh my God. I could just imagine Mueller just putting a hand on his shoulder and saying, "Dude, I understand. It's okay, John. You represent a moron. This is the president of the United States." Later that month, Dowd had told Trump, quote, don't testify. It's either that or an orange jumpsuit. That's how afraid his lawyers, former lawyers, were of his performance in that mock interview. Oh my God, this guy's going to get himself imprisoned. He's so dumb, he's going to get himself in trouble. He is not a smart person. He is not a very stable genius. He's going to get himself wrecked. Don't do it, don't do it, don't do it. In fact, that's what his lawyers are saying now. But Trump, and this is the amazing part, quote, concerned about the optics of a president refusing to testify and convinced that he could handle Mueller's questions, had by then decided otherwise. Trump told Dowd, according to Woodward, quote, I'll be a real good witness. I'll be the best witness. Believe me. Which Dowd replied, you are not a good witness. Mr. President, I'm afraid I just can't help you. And nobody can. Wow. The next morning, unsurprisingly, Dowd resigned. All it took was one horrible mock interview in which Trump ranted for 30 minutes. The witch hunt. They're out to get me. That's another thing that he's saying in the book. Woodward says Trump is like, oh, this investigation. They're out to get me. They're all out to get me. Who's out to get you? The deep state. The Democrats. The Robert Mueller. No, man. You played yourself. The possibility of Trump doing financial crimes is almost 100%. And here's his lawyer saying, oh my God, I can't deal with this. I can't help this. I can't help this guy. He's not smart. If he talks to Robert Mueller, that's it. Orange jumpsuit, he's done. This is why even Giuliani, as dumb as Giuliani is, and Giuliani's really dumb, he knows it. And he's like, don't talk to Mueller. Don't do it. Don't do it. If you do that, you're going to get absolutely destroyed. Everybody knows he's dumb. That's the thing. Again, walking into the sixth sense, right? Donald Trump everybody knows he's stupid, but Donald Trump does not know he's stupid. He just doesn't know. Oh my God. Again, this is a book sourced from hundreds of interviews in the White House. Bob Woodward. Bob Woodward is known as the guy who investigated Watergate. So he's an extremely credible reporter. High-level people talk to him. He got hundreds of hours of interviews with first-hand sources, meeting notes, personal diaries, files, and documents. This is well sourced. And the reason that I give you that context is, and we know this is going to happen real soon. Donald Trump is going to start attacking Bob Woodward for this book. I can guarantee it. And look, Bob Woodward called Donald Trump. And there's an epic transcript of their conversation. Bob Woodward said, hey, look, I'm having this conversation with you. I'm recording it. Is that okay? And Donald Trump's like, yeah, whatever. Later on in that transcript, Trump's like, it's going to be a negative book, but oh well, who cares? It's going to be negative. It's going to be inaccurate. And Trump himself, speaking of inaccurate, okay, what's inaccurate about it? And here's Bob Woodward saying, look, this is what people are saying. All I'm doing is I'm writing this down. I'm reporting this. But to Trump, and he says this in the transcript, no, accurate is basically saying nice things about me. That's what accurate is basically saying positive things about Donald Trump. That's what that is. Right there, mindset. So as soon as this book comes out, it comes out on September 11th. His response, his meltdown, is going to be epic. Can't wait. Can't wait. Holy crap. We are in trouble. Okay, let's get to something a little bit more serious. Workers' rights. Okay. So now President Trump had claimed to be a friend of workers, right? He cares about workers. He cares about not only jobs, but of course, worker safety, right? So now, in fact, as the story in Politico had noted, while Trump promised to cut regulations bigly, right? We're going to cut regulations, but we're going to make sure to cut regulations that hurt businesses, but not skimp when it comes to worker safety. I'm going to make sure to keep regulation that protected the health and well-being of our nation's workers. So that was one of the promises that he made. So what's happened since? Well, obviously he's cut regulations massively, but did he keep regulations that protected workers? So, well, let's get into that. Let's get into the details, right? Now, according to the Politico, he's actually rolled back worker safety protections affecting underground mine safety inspections, offshore oil rigs, and line speeds in meat processing plants, among others. So the answer is no. So let's dive into the details of what that means. But first, you might be wondering, but wait a minute, didn't he promise? You just mentioned how he promised during the campaign that he was going to protect workers, right? Isn't that at odds with the public stance? Why, yes, it is. And if you're asking that question, you don't know Trump. Odds are you haven't paid attention to what he's actually been doing. Everything he says is basically either a lie or a contradiction. Sometimes both, and at the same time, sometimes one following the other. But see, when it comes to worker safety in the Trump administration, to them, rules that protect workers, even rules that protect worker safety, are a hindrance to corporations. Now, of course, the line is, but we need to deregulate in order to help boost employment numbers. That's, I mean, look, that's what they want to do. That's their whole argument. Oh, no, we need to deregulate so we can get more jobs. But here's the thing. If you remove those safety requirements, you might not get more jobs. And if you do, those jobs are more dangerous. So let's take the coal industry, for example, right? Now, Donald Trump put a coal executive in charge of regulating the coal industry. In fact, Trump's mine safety chief, David Zatazalo, is a former coal executive who as recently as 2011 was cited by the agency he now leads for a pattern of safety violations. When Zatazalo was president and CEO at Rhino Resources, a West Virginia miner, was killed when a portion of a rock wall collapsed on him. The accident occurred after Rhino had been cited for one worker safety violation, and right before it had received a second violation. Now, Zatazalo, at his confirmation hearing, told senators that, quote, the management of that particular group and that particular site was not doing what they should have been doing. So, wait, I thought the whole argument for conservatives is, well, that's okay. These companies can just regulate themselves and they can do their own inspections, etc. Well, it turns out that's not smart. Look, under the Obama administration is when this happened, okay? Inspectors had to incur before workers began their shifts to scale away for existence loose pieces of rock that might fall on them. But in April, the Zatazalo-led Mine Safety and Health Administration said it will allow inspections to begin while miners were already at work. The change was proposed 2 months before Zatazalo was confirmed. So this happened back in 2011, this mine accident. Now, it was because the mine wasn't doing what it was supposed to do. The company wasn't doing what it's supposed to do in trying to make sure that workers were protected. Now, of course, accidents still sometimes happen, even when you do a lot of regulation. That's why they call them accidents. But in response to that, the Trump administration says what we need to do is we need to deregulate. No, let's deregulate the coal industry and make it so that the Mine Safety and Health Administration can do inspections while people are at work. But wait, that doesn't make any sense. Now, MSHA wrote in the final rule, quote, "These additional amendments provide mine operators additional flexibility in managing their safety and health programs and reduces regulatory burdens without reducing the protections afforded miners." But wait, if something is already messed up, something is already dangerous, allowing somebody to work in that condition makes an accident far more likely than when you find it before people start working. So this doesn't make any sense. In a written statement, a DOL spokeswoman, said miners will still be notified of hazards that aren't corrected promptly. MSHA believes that the additional required communication and notification will encourage prompt corrective action and help prevent fatalities and other accidents. Well, that's not necessarily the case. How is that going to prevent facility and other fatalities and other accidents? I don't see how changing this rule makes it better. Well, it doesn't. But there's more. There's more deregulation. It's not just in the coal industry, but also in the oil industry. At the Interior Department, administration officials are seeking to roll back regulations on offshore oil rigs. A proposed rule would rescind the requirement that only government-approved third parties may inspect blowout preventers that seal the well in the event of a pressure surge. Now, okay, so the reason that's important is that a company could inspect their own blowout preventer and be like, oh, yeah, it's great. Great condition. But what happened when companies were allowed to do that? Because remember, this regulation was actually in response to Deepwater Horizon, who inspected their own blowout preventers. And guess what? Those preventers did not work. There was a blowout. Oops. And it caused millions of dollars worth of damage. Not only damage to the rig itself, but to the, more importantly, to the coastline, to the environment. Now, of course, hiring a third-party inspector is a little bit more expensive, so that's why these companies are like, no, don't want to. I actually want to save more money and put it in my pocket. So they lobbied to get rid of this rule. And of course, the administration is now looking to roll back that rule. The revisions also would allow rig operators to test equipment less frequently, because that's always a good idea, to prevent what they call wear and tear. Oh, so if you test it, well, that's wear and tear. But that doesn't make sense. Look, here's the thing. All told, the changes would save industry more than $900 million over 10 years. So, it would save money, but you have to look at why these regulations were put here in the first place. Because we already had accidents when these companies were allowed to regulate themselves. That's when you had more problems. It's not that these regulations are there to try to destroy industry. These are basic rules for safety and to protect the company as well, even though it costs more. It's ridiculous. There's more. At the Agriculture Department, officials are weighing whether to raise line speeds at meatpacking plants, a change that worker advocates say would increase repetitive motion injuries and accidents. So this is dealing directly with the workers. According to government data, the injury rates in meatpacking are already higher than in U.S. industries as a whole. Oh, but that's okay. Let's increase line speeds so we can have even more injuries. USDA in February proposed lifting line speed requirements in hog processing plants, part of an effort to streamline food safety inspections at the plants, which currently may process no more than 1,100 hogs per hour. Agriculture Department officials wrote in the proposal that they seek to remove, quote, unnecessary regulatory obstacles and cut food safety inspection staff, saving taxpayers $8.7 million. They say the change would also free up the inspectors to inspect other areas of the plant. Now, the problem here is that increased speeds could lead to shoulder, neck, back, and wrist injuries. And not only that, but increased line speed could cause workers to take shortcuts in an environment that is already dangerous. Now, that's just the impact on workers. But speeding up lines doesn't necessarily only impact workers, but also consumers. What are the chances now with the faster speeds that people miss something and miss a potentially dangerous problem? You want to take that chance with your food? I don't. Now, the Trump administration, to their credit, had denied a similar poultry industry position for unlimited line speed increases this year. However, it did say that it would consider applicants to raise line speeds from 140 to 175 birds per minute at certain plants. That is not what we need to do. We need better inspection. Look, there's a reason that quality, look, the quality in America of our meat is so low, and that it's to the point of where there are European countries that won't import our meat because it has such low safety standards. And they want to make the standards even lower, race to the bottom. But as far as going back to the workers, right? Is Donald Trump protecting workers with his regulation? Is he going to keep regulations that protect workers? No. Poultry workers already face higher injury rates than manufacturing workers overall. At a plant in Maryland in 2014, government researchers found that more than a third of workers suffered from carpal tunnel syndrome. Many more don't report dangerous conditions due to fear of retaliation, according to the GAO, making it hard for the government to accurately assess the scope of the problem. Now, what's even more disturbing is that USDA food safety officials acknowledge that safety isn't a top priority. Quote, "We don't regulate worker safety," according to Acting Administrator Paul Kiker. He says, "What we regulate at FSIS is the food safety, yes. That's not to say we are not interested in employee safety. We're definitely interested in that, but we don't regulate that. We don't care about worker safety." That's what I read that as. No, we don't care as much about worker safety. So we're okay with increasing the line speeds. Wow. Now, the National Chicken Council, which I love, the main advocacy group for the poultry industry, noted that injury rates among workers have fallen in the past 2 decades. So this is our argument for lowering the line speed. Well, because we had more safety and more regulations in place, we had less injuries. So let's remove those regulations now. That's what they argue. Wait a minute. The whole point of the regulations is to reduce those injuries. Now, you don't get to remove regulation because it did what it was intended to do. You can't say mission accomplished. That's like somebody who needs a medication and decides, oh, I'm going to go off the medication because it worked. But wait, that doesn't solve your problem. Your problem isn't solved. In fact, and so you can't get away from the thing that is the solution. If it works, don't stop doing it. Do what works. Do what works. And guess what? Regulation actually works. But no, they want to undo the very thing that made those plants safer in the first place. And that's the thing, though. Those regulations, those rules, they don't care about that. They don't care about any of that. And why? It's because it costs them money. Corporations, their only objective is to maximize profit. And that's it. That is why they want to get rid of these regulations, because they don't care about their workers. They don't care about injury rates. It doesn't matter to them. And that's why this is probably the worst proposed rule change. And that is at the Occupational Safety and Health Administration. That's OSHA, right? Trump officials are seeking to loosen reporting requirements for injury and illness data from large companies. So the chicken industry says, oh, we have less injuries, but they want to increase the line speed. If they do that and then get this rule rolled back, when it comes to reporting, well, then they can still say, oh, no, we've got low injury rates. But in reality, they can hide their injury rates. Now, a rule proposed in July would relieve companies with 250 workers or more from a previous obligation to submit detailed injury and illness data, which OSHA had intended to publish online. These companies now would have an easier time hiding illness and injury reports. There's more. Since Trump took office, OSHA also scrubbed a running list of worker deaths from its homepage. This is workplace-related deaths. I once worked at a place where somebody got crushed by a press. Not when I was there, but it was after I had hired in. So after I hired in, I heard the stories of, hey, somebody got crushed in a press. It was a maintenance guy. Under these regulations, or the rollback of these regulations, they wouldn't have to report that to the government. And of course, now OSHA, which tracked those, doesn't track those anymore. They don't care about workers. They don't care about you. Under the Trump administration, workers' rights are going backwards. They're not going forwards. They're not getting better. He is not honoring that promise. And now you have the Kavanaugh pick for the Supreme Court, along with Neil Gorsuch. Deregulation, look, is going to be very, very difficult to undo, which is what the administration, which is what these Supreme Court justices are really in favor of. They are so pro-corporate. Judge Gorsuch, for example, wanted to punish a truck driver for not freezing in his truck. No, this truck driver got fired for leaving his load because he would have frozen to death. Judge Gorsuch says, no. You freeze to death for the corporation when the corporation tells you to freeze to death. That's the kind of America that we're living in. And Judge Kavanaugh isn't any better. He is also incredibly pro-corporate. So if you want to regulate anything, even after Trump is gone and we get Bernie Sanders, we're still going to have, if the Democrats approve Kavanaugh, we're still going to have him, and we're still going to have Neil Gorsuch. We're going to have the most conservative court in history. That's the legacy of Trump. This is who the administration favors over workers, corporations. And why is that? If you're asking that question, you haven't been paying attention. If you didn't know by now, all you have to do is follow the money. Because that's what it's always about. Okay. That's it. Thank you, guys. That's all I have for the show today. I want to respond to a comment here because I thought this was really interesting. Beer says, OSHA used to make appointments to inspect our factory. We knew when they were coming, and certain machines were not run while they were there. That mirrors the story of a place that I worked at. We knew when OSHA was going to come. And look, at a company that I worked at, I'm not going to name the company, but I was working in a place where we were supposed to wear glasses and hard hats. Nobody did. Nobody wore them except on the day that OSHA inspectors came. That's when the bosses were like, oh, no, hat. You need a hard hat. You need your safety glasses, earplugs, everything. But on any other day, they didn't care. And they didn't have, the kind of gloves that you need in stock. Safety gloves. Didn't have any of that. Only when OSHA came around. So, look, I'm in support of OSHA. I'm in support of workplace safety. Do you think these corporations play by the rules? No. Even when there are rules. Even when there is regulation, there are a lot of companies that don't want to play by the rules. You have to catch them, and you have to have rules out there that is meant to catch these people. And it's not the only place where I've worked at that has done the same thing. corporations have run amok, and they need to be reined in. And with actual common sense rules that will actually help protect workers. So that's just my experience. All right, guys. Before we go, by the way, I do want to give a shout out to somebody who donated for the super chat. Let me pull that up here. I want to thank Elaine Maldonado for donating. You help support the show. You keep us on the air. All right, guys. If you want to help, also use the super chat, or you can support us at our Patreon page, patreon.com/TYTNation. That helps keep us on the air. So thank you so much. Okay. Now, I think I'm just going to read one more thing. Run for Congress? No. No, I don't think I can do that. All right. Thanks, guys. Love you guys. And remember, change begins with you. Good night, TYT Nation. We'll see you tomorrow.